The cargo ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was a big vessel, old but strong, carrying supplies from one star system to another. The name of the ship was the Star, and it had been traveling through the galaxy for many years. Stood near the observation window and looked at the stars. He was a young man from Earth, 26 years old, with black hair and calm eyes. He had been on this ship for 3 months now. 3 long months of strange food, strange air, and strange looks from the crew. There were tall beings. They stood almost 8 feet high with thin bodies and skin that was almost see-through. When they moved, you could see their organs working inside them. Their faces had 4 eyes, 2 on each side, and they blinked all 4 at once. They were not ugly, but they were very different from humans. Was one of only 2 humans on the ship. The other was a woman named. She was a few years older than him and had worked with aliens for a long time. She had helped understand many things about life in space. On this morning, walked to the meal area to get his breakfast. The room was large, with many tables and seats made for the tall bodies. Had to climb onto his seat like a child climbing a high chair. He did not mind anymore. He had gotten used to it. A young named Bora sat across from him. Bora was different from the others. She was curious about humans and liked to ask questions. She had even chosen a name that sounded more human because she thought it was beautiful. "Good morning, human," Bora said. Her voice was soft and musical like wind through leaves. "Good morning," Bora replied. He smiled at her. "Just call me. You don't need to say human every time." Bora's 4 eyes blinked. "But that is what you are. It would be wrong to forget." Laughed quietly. They were very polite about such things. They always wanted to show respect by naming what something was. To them, calling someone just by their name was almost rude. Walked into the meal area and sat next to. She was a small woman with short hair and a quick smile. She carried a tray of food that looked different from what they ate. Humans could not eat food. It would make them very sick. "You look tired," said Tu. "I could not sleep well," admitted. "The bed is too soft. It feels like sleeping on water." Nodded. "I asked them for a harder surface months ago. They thought I was joking. They think soft beds are the best thing in the universe." Bora leaned forward with interest. "Your species prefers hard sleeping surfaces, but that would hurt your body, would it not?" Shook his head. "Humans are not as delicate as you think, Bora. We are stronger than we look." Bora's eyes blinked again and she looked uncertain. Knew why. The belief that humans were fragile creatures. They had heard stories about Earth and could not believe that any intelligent life could survive there. To them, Earth was a death world, a planet of poison and danger. The truth was different, of course. Humans had not just survived on Earth. They had thrived. They had become the dominant species on a planet full of predators, diseases, and extreme weather. But they did not understand this. They only saw small, soft beings with thin skin and no claws. After breakfast, reported to the work assignment board. Every day, the crew received their tasks for the shift. Usually worked in the storage areas, moving boxes and checking supplies. It was simple work, but it kept him busy. Today, however, his name was listed for a different area, Chemical Processing Bay 7. Frowned. He had never worked in the chemical areas before. He walked to the bay and found supervisor waiting for him. Was an older with a serious face. His 4 eyes were darker than most, and he rarely smiled. He looked at with something like worry in his expression. "Human," said slowly, "you have been assigned to assist in this bay today. I must warn you about the dangers." Nodded. "I am ready to learn." Pointed to a row of large tanks against the wall. They were made of thick metal with small windows on the front. Inside the windows, could see green liquid bubbling slowly. "These are the acid tanks," explained. "We use this acid to break down certain materials for recycling. It is extremely dangerous. Even a small drop on the skin would cause terrible damage. For most species, contact with this acid means death." looked at the tanks with interest. The green liquid did look dangerous. It moved and bubbled like something alive. Your job is simple, continued. You will watch the temperature monitors. If any number goes above the red line, you will alert me immediately. You will not touch anything. You will not go near the tanks. You will only watch and report. Is this clear? Very clear, said. Stared at him for a long moment. I do not like having a human in this area. You are too fragile for such work, but we are short on crew and the captain ordered it. Please, human, be very careful. I do not want your death on my conscience. Almost laughed, but he stopped himself. He could see that was truly worried. The believed with all his heart that was in great danger just by being in this room. I will be careful, promised. Nodded and walked away to check on other parts of the bay, took his position near the monitoring screens. The numbers were all stable. Green lights showed that everything was normal. He looked across the bay and saw working at another station. She was checking some equipment near the far wall. When she noticed him looking, she gave him a small wave. Waved back. He felt comfortable knowing she was nearby, understood things that they did not. She knew what humans could really do. The hours passed slowly, watched the monitors and made notes when small changes happened. The work was boring, but he did not complain. On a ship in deep space, boring work was often the best kind. Exciting work usually meant something had gone wrong. Near the end of his shift, Bora came to visit him. She was not supposed to be in the chemical bay, but she had brought him a container of water. You must stay hydrated, she said, handing him the container. Humans need more water than I read this in a study. Took the water gratefully. Thank you, Bora, that is very kind. Bora looked at the acid tanks with fear in her eyes. Are you not scared to work here? This acid could kill you. Thought about how to answer. He did not want to lie to his friend, but he also did not want to seem arrogant. I am careful, he said finally, but I am not scared. Humans have worked with dangerous things for a very long time. It is part of who we are. Bora tilted her head, confused by his words. But before she could ask more questions, an alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed across the bay. The calm atmosphere turned to chaos in seconds. Something had gone very wrong. The alarm screamed through the chemical bay like a wounded animal. Red lights flashed from every corner, turning the room into a place of dancing shadows. Stood frozen for just 1 second, then his training took over. He looked at the monitors in front of him. The numbers were climbing fast. One of the acid tanks was showing a temperature far above the safe level. The green liquid inside was bubbling violently, and steam was rising from the top. Supervisor ran across the bay, his long legs carrying him faster than any human could move. His 4 eyes were wide with terror, and his see-through skin had turned a pale blue color. Had learned that this meant extreme fear in. Evacuate, shouted, his voice cracked with panic. Everyone out, the tank is going to breach. The workers dropped everything and ran for the exits. Their thin bodies moved like water flowing downhill, fast and desperate. Watched them go, but he did not move. Appeared at his side. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp and focused. What's happening? She asked. Tank 3, said, pointing at the largest tank. Temperature is out of control. The sensor says it's going to explode. Looked at the readings, then looked at the tank itself. She frowned. Something doesn't look right. The liquid isn't acting like it should at that temperature. Had noticed the same thing. If the acid was truly at the temperature the monitor showed, it should be boiling much more violently. It should be throwing off dangerous gas. But it was only bubbling a little, like water warming for tea. The sensor might be broken, said. Grabbed his arm. This grip was surprisingly strong for his thin fingers. Human, you must leave now. The acid will spray everywhere when the tank breaks. It will burn through your skin in seconds. You will die in terrible pain. Gently removed his hand from his arm. "Supervisor, I think the sensor is giving false readings. Look at the tank. Does that look like acid at critical temperature?" Did not even glance at the tank. His fear was too strong. "It does not matter, we cannot take risks. Come with me now." But did not move. He walked toward the tank instead. Made a sound of pure horror. It was a high, thin noise that hurts ears. "What are you doing? Stop. Human, stop." Stayed where she was, watching with curious eyes. She did not try to stop him. She knew something that did not. Reached the tank and looked at it closely. The green liquid was bubbling, yes, but it was not violent. The metal of the tank was warm to the touch, but not hot. He pressed his hand against the surface and felt only gentle heat. "The sensor is definitely broken," called back to. "This tank is not at critical temperature. It's barely warm." Had fallen against the doorframe. He was shaking all over and his blue color had become even paler. "How can you know this? You cannot touch the tank. It will burn you." Looked at the supervisor. He could see that words would not convince this frightened alien. Needed proof. Real, solid proof that he could see with his own 4 eyes. Made a decision that would change everything. He walked to the top of the tank, where a small hatch allowed workers to add materials. He opened the hatch. The green acid bubbled below, giving off a sharp smell that made his nose tingle. But it was not a dangerous smell to him. It reminded him of the cleaning products his mother used to use back on Earth. Human screamed, "Close that hatch, the fumes alone could kill you." Rolled up his sleeve. He looked at the bubbling green liquid. Then, without any hesitation, he dipped his finger into the acid. The bay became completely silent. Even the alarm seemed to fade into the background. Collapsed to his knees, certain that he was watching a human commit suicide. Bora, who had been hiding near the door, covered her face with her hands, unable to watch. Pulled his finger out and looked at it. The skin was slightly red, that was all. There was no burning, no melting, no terrible pain. The acid had touched his skin and done almost nothing. "It's about 40 degrees, said in a normal voice. "Warm, but not dangerous. The sensor is giving false readings. That's your problem. The tank is fine." Stared its hand. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked like someone who had just seen a ghost. Walked over to with a small smile on her face. "Show off," she said quietly. Grinned at her. I had to prove the point somehow. Turn 2. "Supervisor, humans have different biology than our skin is tougher than it looks. This acid," she pointed at the tank, "is actually weaker than the acid that exists naturally in our stomachs." His eyes blinked rapidly. He could not process what he was hearing. "Your stomachs." "Yes," explained patiently. "Humans produce hydrochloric acid inside our bodies. We use it to digest food. It's stronger than this acid of yours. That's why I could touch it without serious harm." Looked from 2 to the acid tank. His whole understanding of humans was falling apart before his eyes. He had believed that humans were weak, fragile creatures who needed protection. Now he was learning that they could touch deadly acid and survive. "This is not possible," whispered. "This should not be possible." Bora slowly uncovered her face. She looked at its hand, which was now just slightly pink, like mild sunburn. Her 4 eyes were wide with amazement. "You are not hurt?" she asked in a small voice. "It stings a little," admitted. "Like when you touch something too warm, but it's nothing serious." The other began to come back into the bay, one by one. They had heard what happened through the communication system. They stared at like he was some kind of miracle. Took charge of the situation. "The alarm was caused by a faulty sensor. We need to replace it and restart the monitoring system. The acid is at safe levels. There is no danger." Slowly, the crew began to move again. They started working on the broken sensor, though they kept stealing glances at every few seconds. He could feel their eyes on him constantly. Finally stood up from the floor. His color was returning to normal, though he still looked shaken. He approached with careful steps. "Human," he said slowly, "I owe you an apology. I thought you were being foolish. I thought you were going to die, but you saved us from unnecessary panic. You showed us that the danger was not real." Shook his head. "You don't need to apologize. You were trying to protect me. I understand." "But I was wrong about you," continued. "I thought humans were weak. I thought you needed our protection. Now I see that I did not understand your species at all." He looked at its hand again, still amazed that it was not destroyed. "What else can humans survive?" asked. "What other things that we think are deadly?" And looked at each other. There was so much they could tell. Humans could survive extreme cold and extreme heat. They could eat foods that were poison to other species. They could recover from injuries that would kill most aliens. They could keep going even when their bodies were damaged and broken. But decided to keep things simple for now. They had learned enough for one day. "We are tougher than we look," said simply. "That's all you need to know for now." Nodded slowly. He did not look afraid of any more. Instead, there was something new in his eyes, something that looked almost like respect. The shift ended an hour later. Walked back to his quarters, feeling the eyes of every he passed. The story had already spread through the ship. Everyone knew what he had done. When he reached his room, he sat on his too-soft bed and looked at his hand. The redness was already fading. By tomorrow, there would be no mark at all. He thought about what it said. They did not understand humans. They saw small bodies and soft skin and assumed weakness. They did not know about the millions of years of evolution that had shaped humanity. They did not know about the predators, the diseases, the ice ages, the wars. They did not know that humans had survived everything their death world could throw at them. But they were starting to learn. Smiled to himself. He had a feeling that things on this ship were about to change in a big way. The next morning, woke up to find a message on his communication screen. The captain wanted to see him, immediately. Dressed quickly and walked through the ship's corridors. The hallways were wide and tall, built for bodies. He always felt small when he walked through them, like a child in a building made for giants. The he passed looked at him differently now. Before, they had looked at him with pity or curiosity. Now there was something else in their eyes: fear, wonder, uncertainty. They did not know what to make of him anymore. He reached the captain's office and pressed the entry button. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Captain sat behind a large desk made of dark metal. He was an impressive, taller than most, with 4 eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His skin was slightly darker than the other, and he carried himself with the weight of authority. Was already there, standing near the window. She gave a small nod as he entered. "Human," Captain said. His voice was deep and serious. "Please sit." Climbed into one of the tall chairs. His feet did not reach the floor, but he tried not to let it bother him. The captain studied him for a long moment. "I have heard what happened in the chemical bay. Supervisor gave me a full report. He says you put your hand into acid and survived." "Yes," Captain said. "The acid was not as dangerous as everyone thought, not for humans." Leaned forward. "Explain this to me. I have studied the records of your species. Humans are small, you have no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no venom. Your skin is thin. You cannot run fast or jump high. By all measures, you should be one of the weakest species in the galaxy. Yet you touch deadly acid like it is water." Thought carefully about how to answer. This was an important moment. The captain was trying to understand something that most aliens could not understand about humans. "Captain," began, "you are right that we have no claws or fangs. We cannot run as fast as many animals. We are not the strongest creatures in the galaxy. But you are missing something important." "And what is that?" "We come from a death world." His eyes blinked slowly. "I have heard this term before. What does it mean?" Stepped forward. "May I explain?" Nodded gratefully. Had more experience with these conversations. Faced the captain. Our planet Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. That is the highest rating for a planet that still supports life. The conditions there are extreme by galactic standards. She began to list the facts, counting on her fingers as she spoke. Our planet has a gravity that is 1.2 times the galactic average. This means our bones and muscles are denser and stronger than most species. Our atmosphere contains a gas called oxygen, which is actually a slow-burning poison. We breathe it constantly, and our bodies have learned to use it for energy. We drink a liquid that can dissolve metal over time. We call it water. Our star sends radiation that can burn skin and cause disease. We go outside in it for fun. His mouth had fallen slightly open. He was listening with complete attention. But that is not all, continued. Our planet has wild temperature changes. Some places are so cold that water becomes solid. Other places are so hot that creatures die in minutes. Our species learned to survive in all of these places. We made clothes, we built shelters, we adapted. She paused to let this sink in. And then there are the other creatures. Our world is full of predators, animals with teeth and claws that hunt and kill, insects that carry diseases, plants that produce poison, tiny creatures called bacteria that invade bodies and destroy them from within. Every day on Earth is a battle for survival. Turn 2, and you survived all of this. We did more than survive, said. We became the dominant species. We conquered our world. We tamed the predators. We cured the diseases. We built cities in the coldest and hottest places. And then we went to the stars. The captain was silent for a long time. He looked out the window at the passing stars, thinking about what he had heard. "The evolved on a gentle world," he said finally. "Our planet has stable temperatures, calm weather, no major predators. We developed intelligence because we had time to think, not because we needed to fight for survival. We have always believed that civilized species must come from peaceful environments." He turned back to the humans. "But you come from a world of death, and you are still here, still alive, still spreading across the galaxy." "That's right," said. "Humans are not strong because we have weapons built into our bodies. We are strong because we can survive almost anything. We heal from injuries that would kill other species. We can eat foods that are poison to others. Our bodies can handle temperatures, pressures, and chemicals that would be lethal too." Looked at its hand. "The acid said it should have destroyed your flesh, but you were barely harmed." "The acid in my stomach is stronger," said simply. "My body produces it every day to digest food. Acid is mild compared to that." The captain stood up from his desk and walked to the window. He was so tall that he had to bend down slightly to look at the stars. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet and thoughtful. "When humans first joined the galactic community, many species thought you were a mistake, a weak species that had somehow stumbled into space travel. We expected you to fail, to die out, to need constant protection from the dangers of the universe." He turned to face, and we were wrong. We looked at your soft skin and small bodies and saw weakness. We did not understand that you were forged in the fires of a death world. You did not need our protection. You never did. Felt a strange emotion rising in his chest. It was pride mixed with something else. Relief, perhaps. For years, humans had been treated as the galaxy's weaklings. Now, finally, someone was starting to see the truth. "Captain said, we do not want to be feared. We just want to be understood. Humans are not dangerous to our friends. We protect those we care about. We only become dangerous to those who threaten us." Nodded slowly. "I believe you, human, and I think I am beginning to understand your species." He walked back to his desk and sat down. His 4 eyes looked from to and back again. "There is a reason I called you here today," he said. "It was not just to talk about the acid incident. I have a proposal for you, a mission." Raised an eyebrow. "What kind of mission?" "A dangerous one," said. "Very dangerous. So dangerous that the High Council has declared it too risky for our species to attempt." He pressed a button on his desk. A holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a small moon orbiting a red planet. The moon's surface was dark and covered with what looked like flowing rivers of fire. "This is Pyrex 7, explained. "A volcanic moon with a toxic atmosphere. The surface temperature can reach levels that would melt skin. The air is full of sulfuric compounds that would destroy our lungs, and the rain is pure acid falling constantly from the clouds above." He looked at the humans with something new in his eyes, something that looked almost like hope. 3 months ago, a research vessel crashed on this moon. On board was a data core containing years of scientific research that could benefit many species across the galaxy. The Council wants to retrieve it, but they cannot send a team. The conditions are simply too deadly. Understood now. He felt a smile forming on his face. "But not too deadly for humans," he said. Nodded. "Yesterday I would never have considered this. I would have thought it was sending you to your deaths. But now, after what I have seen and heard, I believe you might actually survive." He leaned forward, his 4 eyes bright with intensity. "Will you do it? Will you go to Pyrex 7 and retrieve the data core?" She looked back at him. A silent understanding passed between them. They were both thinking the same thing. This was their chance to show the galaxy what humans could really do. "We'll do it," said. "We'll go to your death moon, Captain." Smiled. After all, it can't be much worse than a Tuesday on Earth. Did not understand the joke, but he understood the courage behind it. For the first time since had met him, the captain smiled. Word spread through the ship faster than light travels through space. By the time and left the captain's office, everyone on board knew about the mission to Pyrex 7, and everyone had an opinion about it. In the meal area, gathered in small groups speaking in hushed voices. They stopped talking whenever walked past, but he could feel their eyes following him. Some looked at him with fear, others with confusion, and some, surprisingly, with hope. Bora found him sitting alone at a corner table, eating his lunch of preserved Earth food. She approached carefully, like someone approaching a wild animal they were not sure was friendly. "May I sit with you, human?" she asked. Gestured to the seat across from him. "Of course, you never need to ask." Bora settled into the tall seat. Her see-through skin was showing colors of pink and purple, which had learned meant nervousness and excitement mixed together. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "Are you really going to Pyrex 7? "Yes," said, "and I accepted the mission." Bora's 4 eyes widened. "But the reports say no could survive there for more than a few minutes. The heat would burn our skin. The air would poison our bodies. The acid rain would dissolve us where we stand." Took a bite of his food and chewed slowly before answering. "Those things would hurt us too, Bora, but they would not kill us, not if we are prepared." "How can you be so calm?" Bora leaned forward, her voice rising slightly. "You are talking about walking into death itself." Thought about how to explain. Bora was his friend, and she deserved an honest answer. "On Earth," he began, "there is a place called Death Valley. It is one of the hottest places on our planet. The temperature can reach 50 degrees in the summer. The ground is dry and cracked. There is almost no water. Most species would die there in hours." Bora nodded, her eyes fixed on him. "But humans live there," continued. "We built towns and roads. We drive cars through the heat. We hike for fun in the summer months. We carry water and wear protection, and we survive. We do not just survive, we thrive." He leaned back in his chair. "Pyrex 7 is worse than Death Valley, much worse, but the principle is the same. With the right equipment and the right mindset, humans can handle conditions that would kill other species. It is what we evolved to do." Bora was silent for a moment. Then she asked a question that surprised. "Are you not afraid at all?" Considered this honestly. "Yes," he admitted. "I am afraid. Fear is a natural response to danger, but humans have learned to use fear instead of being controlled by it. Fear tells us to be careful. It tells us to prepare. It does not tell us to give up. Bora's colors shifted to a deeper purple, had never seen this color before. He wondered what it meant. "You are very strange creatures," Bora said softly, "but also very brave. I hope you both come back safely." "We will," promised, "and when we do, I'll tell you all about it." The days that followed were filled with preparation, and worked with the ship's engineers to modify their environment suits. Standard human suits could handle basic space conditions, but Pyrex 7 required something more. They added extra heat shielding to the outer layer. They installed better air filters to handle the toxic atmosphere. They reinforced the joints and seals to resist the acid rain. The work took long hours, but both humans threw themselves into it completely. Supervisor became an unexpected ally. After the acid tank incident, his attitude toward humans had changed completely. He now treated and with deep respect, and he offered his engineering skills to help with the suit modifications. "I want to make sure these suits are perfect," said as he adjusted a seal on his glove. "You saved us from panic in the chemical bay. Now I want to help save you on this mission." "Thank you," said. "We appreciate your help." His four eyes looked at with an expression that was hard to read. "May I ask you something personal, human?" "Of course." "When you put your hand in the acid, were you afraid, even a little?" Smiled. "I was nervous, yes, but I had calculated the risk. I knew the acid was weaker than what my body produces naturally. The danger was small. Still, there is always uncertainty, always a chance that something could go wrong." "But you did it anyway," said. "You took the risk." "Yes, because the benefit was worth it. If I had not shown everyone that the sensor was broken, the crew would have stayed in panic. The bay might have been shut down for days. The ship would have fallen behind schedule. One small risk prevented many larger problems." Nodded slowly. "Do not think this way. We avoid risk whenever possible. We believe that safety is the highest value." "And that is wise in many situations," agreed. "But sometimes taking a small risk is the safest choice. Sometimes doing nothing is the most dangerous thing you can do." Finished adjusting the glove and stepped back. "I am learning much from you humans, things that I never would have learned from my own species. Thank you for teaching me." That evening, Captain called a meeting of the entire crew. The large assembly hall was filled with tall bodies, all facing the raised platform where the captain stood, and stood beside him, looking small but strong. "Tomorrow," the captain announced, "our human crew members will depart for Pyrex 7. They will attempt a mission that no could survive. They will walk into conditions that we consider certain death. And they will do this not for money or glory, but because the data on that crashed vessel could help species across the galaxy." He turned to look at and his four eyes were bright with emotion. "I have learned something important these past few days," continued. "I have learned that we did not understand humans. We saw their soft skin and thought they were weak. We saw their small bodies and thought they needed protection. We were wrong." The crowd murmured. Some shifted uncomfortably. "Humans evolved on a death world," said. "A planet of poison and fire and endless danger. They did not just survive there. They conquered it. They became the masters of a world that tried to kill them every single day. And now they bring that strength to the stars." He raised his hand toward the two humans. "Tomorrow, when and descend to Pyrex 7, they will represent not just humanity but all of us. They will show the galaxy what courage looks like, what determination looks like, what it means to face impossible odds and refuse to surrender." The hall was completely silent. Every eye was fixed on the humans. His voice dropped lower, more serious. "I ask all of you to support them, not because they need our help to survive. They do not. But because they deserve to know that we believe in them, that we are honored to serve beside them." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a sound began to rise from the crowd. It was a humming noise, deep and resonant. Had never heard it before, but he could feel its meaning. It was the way of showing respect. The humming grew louder, filling the hall. Everyone was participating, their bodies vibrating with the sound. Bora was near the front, her 4 eyes shining with tears. Even the serious supervisor was humming along with the others. Felt his throat tighten. He had spent months feeling like an outsider on this ship. He had endured the pitying looks, the whispered concerns, the constant assumption that he was fragile and weak. Now, finally, he was being seen for what he truly was. He was not just a human. He was a survivor of a death world, a member of a species that had conquered impossible odds for millions of years. And tomorrow, he would prove it once again. Reached over and squeezed his hand. Her eyes were bright with the same emotion he was feeling. "Ready?" she asked quietly. Looked at the humming crowd, at the captain who now believed in them, at the vast darkness of space waiting outside. "Ready," he said. The humming continued long into the night. The shuttle dropped through clouds of yellow poison, sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls, was beside him, monitoring the environmental readings on her screen. Outside the windows, there was nothing but swirling gas and flashes of distant lightning. "Temperature rising," reported. 50 degrees, 60, 70, still climbing. Nodded. "The suits are holding. How are the filters?" "Working perfectly. Did good work on these modifications." The shuttle shook violently as they passed through a layer of turbulence. Warning lights flashed across the control panel but ignored them. He had expected this. Pyrex 7 was not a gentle place. They broke through the clouds and saw the surface for the first time. It was a nightmare landscape. Rivers of molten rock flowed across black ground. Mountains of volcanic stone rose in the distance, their peaks glowing with orange heat. The sky above was a sickly yellow, heavy with toxic clouds. And everywhere, acid rain fell like tears from an angry god. "Beautiful," said quietly. Looked at him. "You think this is beautiful?" "In a terrible way, yes." Guided the shuttle toward the crash site. "It reminds me of pictures of early Earth. Before life changed the atmosphere, our planet looked like this once, billions of years ago." Smiled, "And look what we made of it." The crashed research vessel appeared on the horizon. It was a small ship, broken in half by the impact. The front section was buried in black rock. The rear section was exposed and could see the door that would lead them to the data core. He landed the shuttle on a flat area of ground about 100 meters from the wreck. The landing was rough. This ground was not meant for gentle landings. "Suit check," said. They both went through the procedure carefully. Helmets sealed, air flowing, temperature regulators working, every system green. "Ready?" asked. "Born ready," replied. The shuttle door opened, and they stepped out onto the surface of Pyrex 7. The heat hit immediately. Even through his suit, he could feel it pressing against him like a physical weight. The temperature reading in his helmet showed 90 degrees. Hot but not deadly, not for a human. The ground crunched under his boots. It was made of crystallized minerals, sharp and brittle. Each step sent small cracks spreading across the surface. Acid rain began to fall on them immediately. Watched the drops hit his suit and slide off. The outer layer sizzled slightly where the acid touched it, but the material held strong. Had done excellent work. "Moving toward the wreck," said into his communicator. Back on the star, captain and the crew were listening to every word. "Understood's voice replied. There was tension in his tone. "Be careful, both of you." They walked through the rain, their boots leaving prints in the mineral surface. The crashed ship grew larger as they approached. Up close, could see the damage more clearly. The hull was torn open in several places. Burn marks covered the metal. Whatever had brought this ship down, it had been violent. "The data core should be in the rear section," said, checking her scanner. "Second level, storage compartment C." They reached the exposed door and found it jammed shut. The crash had bent the frame, locking it in place. Pulled out a pry bar from his equipment pack. Let's see if we can force it. He wedged the bar into the gap between the door and the frame. Then he pushed with all his strength. On Earth, under normal gravity, this would have been difficult. But here, on this smaller moon with weaker gravity, his Earth-bred muscles had an advantage. The metal groaned. Then with a screech of protest, the door bent open. "Nice work," said. They entered the ship. Inside, the damage was worse. The walls were torn and twisted. Equipment was scattered everywhere. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows. The air inside was actually cooler than outside, but still hot enough to be uncomfortable. They made their way through the corridors, climbing over debris and ducking under fallen beams. The ship had clearly been abandoned quickly. Saw personal items left behind, clothing, books, a small stuffed animal that must have belonged to someone's child. "I hope everyone got out safely," said quietly. "The records said the crew escaped," replied. "They made it to the rescue ship just before the crash, but they couldn't take the data core with them, too heavy." They reached storage compartment C. The door was open, hanging off its hinges. Inside, they found what they were looking for. The data core was a large metal box, about the size of a human torso. It was bolted to the floor, which explained why the crew couldn't take it. Knelt down and examined the bolts. "Standard fasteners," he said. "We can remove these." Kept watch at the door while worked. The ship creaked and groaned around them. Pyrex 7 was not happy about their presence. "Temperature rising outside," reported. "We've got maybe 30 minutes before conditions get really bad." "I'll be done in 10, said. He worked quickly, removing each bolt with practiced efficiency. The last bolt was stuck, fused in place by heat damage. Had to use all his strength to break it free. His muscles burned with the effort, but he did not stop. Finally, the data core came free, lifted it and felt its weight, heavy but manageable. "Got it," he said. "Let's go." They made their way back through the ship, moving faster now. The structure was becoming unstable. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors, metal bending, rock shifting, something deep below them rumbling. They emerged into the acid rain, just as a section of the ship collapsed behind them. "That was close," said. "Too close, move." They ran toward the shuttle, the data core heavy in its arms. The rain was falling harder now, and the temperature was climbing. Suit showed warning messages about external conditions approaching dangerous levels. But he did not slow down. He had not come this far to fail now. They reached the shuttle and threw themselves inside, dropped into the pilot seat and started the engines. The craft lifted off just as a new river of lava broke through the ground where they had been standing. "Ascending," reported. "We have the data core, we're coming home." The response from the star was the loudest cheer had ever heard. It was not just the captain. It sounded like the entire crew was screaming with joy. The flight back to the ship took an hour. Docked the shuttle carefully, aware that many eyes were watching through the observation windows. When the docking bay pressurized and the door opened, he found a crowd waiting for them. Everyone on the ship was there. Captain stood at the front, his 4 eyes shining with emotion. Bora was crying, her tears falling like rain down her see-through cheeks. Even the serious supervisor had tears in his eyes. Stepped out of the shuttle, the data core in his arms, followed behind him. The crowd fell silent. Captain walked forward slowly. He stopped in front of and looked at him for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, the captain lowered himself to one knee. "On behalf of the people," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I thank you. You have done what none of us could do. You have saved years of research that will benefit countless lives across the galaxy. You are heroes." Felt uncomfortable with the attention. He was not used to being called a hero. He was just a worker from Earth who had done what needed to be done. "We just did our job," he said quietly. Shook his head. "No, you did much more than that. You showed us what humans really are." He stood up and placed a hand on shoulder. The gesture was surprisingly gentle for such a large being. "When we first encountered your species," said, "we thought you were fragile survivors of a hostile world. We thought you stumbled into space by accident, that you needed protection from the dangers of the universe. We were wrong." He looked out at the crowd, then back at. "You are not survivors," he continued. "You are predators. You are the children of a death world, forged in fire and poison and endless struggle. You do not fear danger because you have faced it every day of your existence. You do not avoid the impossible because you have made the impossible possible again and again." The crowd hummed in agreement, that same deep sound of respect it heard the night before. His voice dropped lower. "The galaxy has not understood what humanity is. Not yet, but they will learn. And when they do, they will realize that there is no species in all the stars that is tougher, braver, or more determined than the children of Earth." He stepped back and raised his hand in a formal salute. "Welcome home, human. Welcome home, human. The people are honored to call you friends." Looked at, she was smiling, her eyes bright with tears she refused to let fall. He looked at the crowd of aliens who had once him, who had thought him weak and fragile. They were looking at him now with something entirely different in their eyes. Respect, admiration, perhaps even a little healthy fear. Smiled. This was just the beginning. There would be other missions, other challenges, other impossible tasks that only humans could handle. The galaxy was vast and full of danger, and humanity had only just started to show what it could do. But for now, in this moment, surrounded by friends who finally understood what he was, allowed himself to feel proud. He was human. He was a child of Earth. And the stars themselves would learn to respect that name.